pronounced Vag, and I'm Adam. There's no way I'm doing that. Thank you so much, everybody, for checking out another one of our videos. Jeremy has a lot of content coming up for his B9 S5 Sportback, and I have a lot of stuff coming up for the Golf R. Some really big Mopowa baby type stuff. If you're in that 90% of people who are watching our videos and aren't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. In one of my last videos that you'll find right up here, I unboxed 7 different spoilers from 7 different companies. The purpose of that video was really just to provide the community with some more power and information to make a better buying decision. Now in this video, I'm gonna change it up a bit and I'm gonna compare all 7 directly in a bunch of different categories, and hopefully that is gonna summarize enough information for you to make the decision of what matters most to you. So the different categories I'll be comparing are when they became available for sale on the market, the total cost including shipping, how long it took to get to my front door, the impressions of the packaging, the material each spoiler is made of, its finish, and the quality in my own opinion, and a little bit of Jeremy's opinion, the method of installation recommended by the manufacturer, and the hardware included or in some cases not included, and my own impressions of dry fitting them on the spoiler of my Golf R. So like I've mentioned in my last video, I have installed a lot of aerofabb's products on my own car and a couple of friends' cars, and I really want this video to be an unbiased opinion and let each of the spoilers speak for themselves. So if there's a category that you're super interested in, make sure to use the chapters feature that you can jump through the video from section to section and, well, you know, might as well just watch the whole thing. So let's get into it. To determine who came out with what when, I really relied on each company's Instagram handle. The very first of these spoiler extensions ever available for the Mark 7 Golf R and GTI was by aerofabb, and that became available in November of 2018. It took a while for others to catch on that this was actually a really great design that a lot of people enjoyed the aesthetics of. So now, after a couple of years, there's at least 6 other companies and maybe even more that are making a very similar looking product. About a year and a half after aerofabb, there's a company called Artwork Designs that came out with their Wicker Bill spoiler extension in April of 2020. Now, I have to take pause and just note right from the get-go, you know, I'm jumping categories here. This spoiler extension will not fit on your GTI or your Golf R without removing the side winglets. I just have to put that disclaimer all the way out here out front, just so you know and don't get too far into this video without knowing that. In June of 2020, Vega Modified, who seems to be a little bit more known for their Ford Fiesta and Ford Focus wear, came out with a spoiler extension of their own that seems to be a little bit more of a rainbow shape than the rest of them. And then in July of 2020, Strafe Design started making their own spoiler extension, but it seems like they mostly support the Subaru crowd. Next to come along was Rennwagen, and I learned that they were actually born out of the forums in about December of 2020 with their first product, which was a spoiler extension. In January of 2021, I was surprised to see that Flow Designs announced their own spoiler extension. I think that there's a lot of people who have bought their other products that have been waiting for something like this to round out their whole package. The latest to come along was Artwork Bodyshop in March of 2021 when they started making their Mark 7 spoiler extensions. Now, they've been making other aero bits for a bunch of different other makes, and as the name suggests, they actually do a lot of other cool bodywork. All right, I want to talk about total cost right up front because this is a major factor in most people's buying decisions. And I'm gonna order these from least expensive to most expensive because I think that kind of sets the stage for what to expect from each of these. And so to save some time, I'm just gonna list everything out over here. Hopefully it all fits. It's just not worth talking about every single one individually, but I'm just gonna hit some of the highlights. The least expensive by far was Strafe Design. And I know nothing about material costs, but the fact that they're selling this for $86 and free shipping is just kind of nutty to me. But I think that you'll recognize some of the trade-offs later in this video. Some of you who are familiar with Rennwagen spoiler might be looking at the price and be like, no, that doesn't look right. But that price includes hardware, which I found was strange that it was the only one that had hardware optional. And for aerofabbs on here, this is the newest design. It's $50 more than they used to sell the old version for, but it's a thicker material that it's a lot better, a lot more detail goes into that. So it lands in the same spot that it would have with the previous price. It's just a little bit more. Rounding out this list is Flow Designs. Now at 275 bucks, they're up there compared to the rest of the field. But you know, got to consider that it's shipped all the way from Australia, so international shipping, and the fact that maybe material costs are a little bit more there. I don't know what material costs are like in Australia. I don't know what material costs are even like in the United States or North America, so maybe that had something to do with it. So if you go through and watch the rest of this video and then come back and take a look at the order of this list, I think that you'll see that this is a very clear example of you get what you pay for. So I feel like there's a pretty fair comparison in the time that it took to arrive to me because I ordered all of them within the same hour of the same day. And it's also important to note that I am measuring this in total days, not just business days. So just like I did for the cost, I'm going to just go ahead and list out everything here, and I'm going to touch on a few of the highlights. That varies pretty drastically, but the reason for that is that the first 4 of these are items that were in stock and on the shelf and ready to be shipped. It just needed time to process. The last 3 are all handmade to order, so that's where that big gap is there. So the first one to arrive was from Hardcore Designs, and it only took 4 days, which I was kind of surprised by. And then I went back and took a look at my notes, and oh yeah, the website said it will ship the day after you place your order, and they are in stock, and it's located in California, so that's why it came so fast. I have to give a little bit of a kudos to Flow Designs for making it to my house in 11 days from Australia. That's over, direct line. That's over 8,000 miles, so kudos to them. This very last one on the list was Strafe Design, and it took the longest. It was also the most frustrating. They just didn't give me a good expectation. Everybody above here gave me expectations as to when I was gonna get stuff. I got tracking numbers, and I could see where things were at. This next category is all about packaging. And I understand that there's some people who are all about packaging and the way that it makes you feel when it shows up. Something that looks nice and neat and new. And when you're opening it, that experience. I also understand that there's a lot of people who could care less about what it looks like on the outside, but give me the thing on the inside as long as it's good quality. My opinion, I really love good packaging because what that shows me is that the company that made that thing cares enough about the product and cares enough about me to take the time to package it properly, make sure that it's going to be safe in transit, and then also look it's fresh. Look it's fresh? Look it's freshest. Look, it's going to look nice when it shows up, all right? And one thing I learned about getting all of these different packages is that it must be really hard to come by a box about this size. There were some pretty creative solutions that showed up. So I'm going to be ranking this category from my favorite packaging to my least favorite packaging. The first one on this list is from aerofabb, and to me, like the way that this one showed up was totally different than most of them, where it had this neat, crisp, branded packaging. I could tell who it was from. When I cut it open, I could also tell that the spoiler itself was really well packaged. It was inside a packing foam, and then it was wrapped in bubble wrap, and then it also had a poly bag around it. And each of those layers had a bajillion pieces of tape that were kind of holding all the folds together. And so I knew that somebody was taking the time to put that in and make sure that it was safe. One thing I really want to point out is that the hardware, the little baggie in there, there's a piece of tape that they stick on the back of the bag to put it in the box. And then they put a piece of tape over it here, put another piece of tape over it here, and maybe a couple more this way. And it is just so good. It's enjoyable to take it out of the box. Flow Designs was another package that showed up in really great condition. I mean, it traveled 8,000 miles to get to me. I was surprised to see that there was very little branding on it though. On the inside, when you open it up, there's 2 wood strips in there to help rigidity for the packaging, to help prevent bending. The spoiler itself, it has a protective coating on it, and then they packed the corners of the spoiler itself with like packing foam and then wrapped the whole thing in packing foam. But it was all pretty good in there too. Rennwagen's packaging looked oddly familiar to aerofabb's, and so I could tell that they were trying to replicate a really great looking product. I could tell that they made the box, but they're trying. What was great is that when I opened up the box, the spoiler's in there, but I got a surprise that there was 2 PVC pipes in there. So they're being creative and using something that was lightweight and rigid to help prevent bending of the spoiler. The spoiler itself was in this kind of thin bubble wrap bag, and it was kind of loosely packaged in there to where it could shift around during shipping. And it actually, one of the ends got bent. It was the only one that happened to, and I'm sure if I reached out to them that they would have no problem replacing it. Artwork Bodyshop's box showed up with a slight bend in it, but when I opened everything up, there was no damage, so it was nice to see. When I opened up the package, they had some real high-density foam corners for the packing on the ends of the spoiler. They also had this kind of wax paper that was around it. It arrived not damaged, and so everything was good. The box that arrived from Hardcore Designs was a little bit more unusual than the rest of them, and it was really heavy when I first got it. So I couldn't wait to open it up and see what was on the inside. The entire spoiler was supported by a piece of OSB, and so it did its job. It prevented the spoiler from bending. The packaging from Vega Modified was another unique presentation where it was kind of this wedge-shaped box. I was really surprised. So like when I cut it open, super easy to get open, the only thing that was in there was the spoiler, and it was only wrapped in like maybe a shrink wrap or some sort of cellophane to protect the finish, and then it was taped to the box, and it seemed to work just fine. Like, the spoiler wasn't damaged and it didn't shift around in there. I was really surprised to see that packaging method seemed to work pretty well. Now, the last one on this list is Strafe Designs, and they by far had the worst packaging. The spoiler showed up in way too large of a box. I could shake it around. I don't think there's really much more that I need to say other than rewatching and experiencing when I first opened up this product. Oh, okay, well, it's in there. That's all that was in the box. It opened itself. So now we're gonna start talking about the product itself. What material it was made out of, what kind of finish is on there, and the quality of the product itself. This is one of the major reasons why I bought all of these spoilers to compare, is that I couldn't tell from all of the pictures online and other people's personal opinions about like, oh, the spoiler that I bought, is the best finish, or, oh, this one, everybody else says it's bad, but it's okay. I needed to see all of them for myself. So here's where it matters. So I'm gonna rank these from best to worst. Some of these are a little bit better than others because of the features they have or some of the design, in my personal opinion. So if you like one of the other ones better, then that's totally fine. It's cool. So number one on this list for me is aerofabbs. It is a 4.5mm thick, some kind of plastic. It is a high gloss, like mirror finish. The edges are finished beautifully. You can't see any of the milling marks on any of it. They have now, with this thicker material, this is kind of their V2 that they've made. They have recessed cutouts for the washers to fit in there. They have the little cutouts for the winglets, the chamfered edge that goes all the way around the top. Oh, one of the coolest things that they've done too is that they recess the badge. It looks just so good. Coming in at a close second for me is Flow Design spoiler. Now, this spoiler is a little bit different shape, has some different features on it. They have the little bar that goes under the third brake light. They also have the little side winglet cutouts, and the quality is pretty good. The double chamfered edge that goes along the top that is similar to aerofabbs, you can see a little bit of the tooling marks on there, but no, not everybody's gonna notice that every day. One thing I think a lot of people will really like about Flow Designs is their double-sided finish. So on one side it's matte, on the other side it's gloss, and so you have the option to flip it back and forth to show matte one way or gloss the other way. And I think that for Flow Designs, that's a really great differentiator for them in the market. The third one on this list is from Artwork Bodyshop, and I was really surprised to see how well this one showed up. When I took it out of the packaging, I was surprised to see like that high gloss finish for being something that was 1/4 inch HPDE and hand sprayed. One thing I really liked about this one is, for the thickness, the rounded edge that's on it is finished really well. The thickness of that matches where the winglets come in at about 1/4 inch, and so it flows pretty nice. Although the only downside to this one is that if I was looking really close, I could pick out some blemishes just because it was a hand-sprayed product, but it turned out pretty good. The spoiler from Vega Modified is a 12 gauge aluminum and comes in either a raw unpainted finish or a satin powder coat finish, and it comes in 3 different shapes. The powder coat finish on this one was pretty consistent. It was a satin powder coat, and so if I looked at it across the product, I could tell that it was, really smooth. There was not like any orange peel on it. So what I ended up getting was, I believe, their V1 with the satin powder coat finish. The only thing that I would suggest is that the edges, because it's 12 gauge aluminum, they're all cut straight, and I think maybe they tried to deburr it, but it still was pretty sharp. And so if I mounted that on my car and I was going to go like wash the back, I can just imagine like my arm going over the top edge of it and getting scraped or even cut possibly. So number 5 on this list is Rennwagen, and their product is a CNC'd aluminum that comes with a gloss black powder coat. Now, there are some blemishes across this powder coat, but the thing that I didn't like most about it was that there's a pretty apparent orange peel. And I know that there's some people that I've talked to already that have said, you know, the orange peel is not a big deal. You know, it's pretty easy to deal with. I can put a product on there that kind of smooths it out. I don't want to do that for something that I just paid 150 bucks for. I want it to match well. And so that's just one of the downsides of it. One of the other downsides for me for the Rennwagen spoiler is the edges. You know, when you have a thin aluminum like this and you have it powder coated and you look across that edge, it just looks like there's a lot of ripples. And so, you know, the product itself, you know, looking back is a smooth cut, but just the way that the powder coat sets on that edge, it doesn't really create a nice smooth line. So this next one is the spoiler from Hardcore Designs, and I'll lead in with this little bit from Jeremy. Look at the instructions real quick.
Hold on, while you're doing that, I just have to say, this is hot garbage. I don't like it.
So our initial impressions coming out of the packaging wasn't all that great. You know, this is a 3mm composite polymetal that is basically a piece of plastic that is sandwiched between two pieces of really thin aluminum. And those pieces of aluminum are finished in like a black satin. And so one thing that we noticed is that they must have, after they cut the edge, it must have had some burrs and they must have filed that off. Well, when they took all that off, it exposed all the raw aluminum and basically created this bright silver aluminum edge all the way around. So that's not something that I was really expecting to see. When we took it out of the packaging, I was actually excited to see that it had a protective coating on it. But when I peeled that protective coating off, I exposed, you know, right around some of the holes on the product that there were some tooling marks, some scratches, and then actually right in the middle of the spoiler, there was one pretty large scratch. And I think also because of the surface of it being aluminum with plastic in the middle, the aluminum dented pretty easily and retained those marks. So as much as it pains me to put this one anywhere above the bottom, nothing was as bad as the one from Strafe Design. And again, for this one, as Jeremy put it in the previous video,
the finish looks like caca though. Oh, you chose the finish. No wonder.
This is another spoiler that's made out of CNC'd aluminum, and it has a black, I think it's powder coat finish. It might be spray painted, but it's supposed to be a gloss black. There's a ton of particles in it. You know, it doesn't look like it was finished in a quality environment. The edges all around this one looked like a beaver attacked it. You know, there's areas where there's like material missing or more material missing than others. There was really rough edges all the way around. The product itself was just, you know, it's not something that I would want to put on my own car. For this section, this is all about the method of installation that is recommended for each instructions of each product and the hardware that comes with it or the hardware that doesn't come with it. The way I've decided to rank this is by the recommended method of install, you know, what I think is going to be best suited to have the least impact on the OEM spoiler, something that has really high quality hardware, and then also, you know, what are the instructions like? And again, on the top spot is aerofabb, you know, for very good reason. They're the only one in this list who has the requirement to remove the spoiler and bolt through. They also have pre-installed 3M tape that's on there. And I feel like that the quality of their instructions, which they have many pages of, you know, clearly printed color pictures, you know, that helps you through the process. They also have super high quality hardware for their bolts, nuts, and even the washers that are exposed on the outside. I'm pretty sure those were custom made. I don't think that that's something you can just pick up anywhere. So second on this list is Flow Designs. And just like their flip-flop finish, they give you two different mounting options. If you go with option A, which is their street option, you know, this is where you use adhesive tape to put on, and then you're using rubber well nuts to mount this spoiler to the back of the car. You know, this does not require removal of the OEM spoiler. You're still drilling holes, and you know, you're using basically the pressure of these rubber well nuts to hold that on there. Now they do have option B where you can actually do a very similar bolt through style like aerofabb, where you remove the spoiler, you drill through, you put bolts through. They provide both of those in the kit for you, so you don't have to choose until you actually do the install. Now it is kind of a bummer that Flow Designs can't pre-install the adhesive tape for you, but that's just the way it works with their finish. You got to choose what side you're going to expose, and then you got to put the tape on. I found it kind of comical though when I was looking through the instructions, seeing what came in the packaging, where it talked about the tape, it said 3M of double-sided tape. And so that's not 3M the brand, that's 3M as in 3 meters of double-sided tape. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if that was something that was purposeful, that maybe Flow Designs is trying to pull a fast one on everybody. I don't know. You know, the unsuspecting person might think that they're getting 3M tape, the brand. For some of these that land in the middle of this list, it was hard to decide what went where, but I'm giving Strafe Design the third position in this one. One, because they have adhesive tape that is pre-installed, they have black hardware, and they have a one-page install instructions that comes in the box. You know, in those instructions, when they tell you to drill, they don't recommend stepping up from smaller bits to bigger bits. They just say, hey, go ahead and put a 3/8 drill right in there. You want to be careful. So maybe learn from some of the other products that you should step up in your drill bits when you're going through these really fine plastics. For Vega Modified, I put them in the list right here because of a couple reasons. They have instructions, really good instructions, and a lot of clear photos online about how they recommend to install this. But the downside is that they recommend using adhesive tape, but they don't provide it. And their hardware is stainless steel. It's not black. It's the only one in all of these that doesn't have black hardware. And so the OCD in me would pour over, and I would have to paint those. So again, that's another bit about some of these products that is just not quite as finished as some of the others. For as much as I like Artwork Bodyshop's spoiler and their finish, I'm not as big of a fan of their install instructions. I think that if I got this, I would probably modify it. You know, the way that their instructions have you install it is that you have the pre-installed 3M tape or adhesive tape that's on there. You stick it on, you drill your pilot holes, and instead of using the rubber well nuts or riv nuts or, you know, bolting through, they just recommend doing some pilot holes and then putting a screw, just tapping straight into the plastic. And so if you're kind of new at doing this sort of thing, you have to be really, really careful when you're going into a thin plastic like that, because if you strip it out, like, you're done for. It's a way to secure it on there, and it's just not as good as some of the other options, but you know, the spoiler itself is still good quality. So the next one on this list is Rennwagen, and the reason why they're so low in the second to last place on this is that on their website, when you go to look at the product, they say that drilling is not necessary. Don't have to remove the spoiler. You know what? You can just use the 3M tape that's pre-installed and just stick it on and call it good. Everybody except Rennwagen recommends doing some sort of mounting method with screws or well nuts or something. So I'd be really, really cautious doing any of these spoilers without using some sort of, you know, bolting or screwing mounting method. I am really curious if anybody has ever installed a spoiler like this without using any of the bolts or screws, whatever, just sticking it on there. I want to know how it's going. So to make this a relatively fair comparison, I did buy the $9 hardware kit from Rennwagen. It comes with 4 rubber well nuts and, you know, similar to some of the others in the way that it installs. All right, the last one on this list is from Hardcore Designs. We can talk about the method of install and we can talk about the product quality, but I think the biggest thing to talk about is that it doesn't fit with the side winglets on the car. Okay, so beyond that, it also falls so low in this list because they have 6 holes that they recommend drilling for riv nuts, metal riv nuts into this thin plastic. You also have to either buy or rent a riv nut gun. You're gonna end up with 6 big holes going all the way across the spoiler. I think it's not a very well thought through product for the placement of those holes and how it would fit on anybody's car. So yeah, it's in last place. All right, for this section about how well they dry fit on my car, I'm gonna keep it pretty brief. If you wanna know more detail, go check out the last section of each spoiler that's in the previous video that I made. Of all of these spoilers, aerofabb and Flow Designs had the best fitment. They both had the side winglet cutouts. They both fit very snug. They had maybe 1/8 of an inch from end to end. Both fit relatively well around, really well around the third brake light. So I put them in a tie for first place. This is the only category and only products that tied in any of them. It was just so hard for me to choose as far as the fit and finish. Like they both were spot on. Now the second one that I have on here is from Artwork Bodyshop. It doesn't have the cutouts for the side winglets, but they do bring it as close to the edge as possible. Again, I do really want to point out that the thickness of this spoiler being 1/4 inch does blend really well to those side winglets. from the right angle, it looks really good. The next one on this list is Vega Modified. They don't have a cutout for the winglets on the side. There's a little bit more gap on the edges, and the way it fits around the third brake light is kind of okay. One thing that is different about this one though is that it does have a much more round and rainbow shape than any of the others. So if that's your thing, then maybe that's the one you go for. The way that Rennwagen's fits on the spoiler, it leaves some to be desired. They tried doing the little cutouts for the winglets, but the shape of that, it doesn't quite fit right. And I'm not sure if that's a limitation of their tooling or just the way that they cut it, but there's a much larger gap around the edges than say the aerofabb and Flow Design's one. And around the third brake light, there's areas that just don't seem to flow exactly with where the third brake light is. It just doesn't fit as good. So Strafe Design did not fall in last place for this one. It actually fits on the car, but there's quite a bit of gap. There's probably like a 1/4 inch gap on the sides. And so even, the back end of my spoiler is all black, and so it all blends in. But just looking at the detail, and then the very tips and corners are rounded instead of pointed to go and fit tight into those corners. If I had that spoiler extension on my car, I would just like look at it and just shake my head and be like, what? Why did I do that? I don't know why they make it that way. It doesn't sit right. Maybe it's stemming from another one of their products and the way that their tooling is, and they make them all that way. But it's a big gap. It doesn't fit very well. Okay, the last one on this list is Hardcore Designs. And I know I already touched on this, but it just is mind-boggling to me still that they sell this product that they think fits the Golf R and GTI, and it doesn't unless you remove the side winglets. It's just crazy. On their website, it says picture of fitment is shown or something to that effect. Like, it doesn't talk about removing the side winglets at all, not even in their instructions. The craziest part is that when they first posted about this product on Instagram, somebody said, hey, do you have to remove the side winglets to do the install? And their response, I'll put it right up here, it says, no sir, just bolts right up. It doesn't. You have to remove them. It doesn't fit. Like it overhangs the side winglets. So unless you want to see for yourself, I'd highly recommend just skipping this one. So what do you think? Do you have the information you need to make a better buying decision? Maybe you've decided that the spoiler extension of this variety is just not for you, and that's totally okay. It's not for everybody. Overall, if I had to make some picks, I would give an honorable mention to Artwork Bodyshop. The way that it showed up, and the high quality of the hand sprayed finish and the hand cut piece, I was really impressed with it. Obviously, my favorite one throughout this whole process, and the one that I'm putting on my car, is the one from aerofabb. But the only other one that I would probably consider putting on my car that is par as far as, or similar to aerofabb as far as quality and fit and finish, is the one from Flow Designs. And so I think that it's really great that they took an extra step to differentiate themselves. The shape is different. They have that bar that goes under the third brake light is different. Their finish is different. It's just a little bit different product. So as for being a good competitor, I think that they're doing the right thing and the best thing that they can, and not just being a straight copycat of something else that looks pretty good. So in my next video for the Golf R, which you can find right up here when I actually post it, I'll be removing the old aerofabb spoiler off my car. Take a look and see what it looks like underneath after having been on there for about a year. I'm not going to go through the full install of the new spoiler on there since I already have a really great video on how to do that. Again, another link right up here. In that video, I'll just go ahead and show you guys the final product of the install. Take a look at what the new version looks like, the thickness and the way that the washer set in, and it's gonna look so good. I can't wait to get it on there. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.